and cough a lot.
Actually, I don't know if you can record as well, because your copy goes into Facebook Live anyway, so maybe that's how they do it.
You'll actually do a recording on your machine as well. So you can
Hello and welcome everyone. This is our first time, David and I, doing a Facebook Live into Facebook. And I understand there's a bit of a delay, isn't there, David, when you do this?
About 20 seconds, yes.
So about 20 seconds. So we're going to sound a bit weird for a while because we're not going to know if there's actually anyone there. So we would love you to drop a question to let us know if you're around, because that would be awesome. I can see on my phone that there are 3 people who are there, and I've got Yvette Claire Holdsworth has sent us a heart. So she is there too. And for some reason, I can't see you, David.
Oh, hang on a sec. That's interesting. Let me just...
I can see me. I can see you now. Your static photo.
Right. But you can't see my beautiful face.
No, I can't see you talking.
How's that? Is that my face?
That looks fantastic. I can see you now.
Okay, I'm going to try something and try something else. So bear with me a second. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we just get up the technology sorted out with this. And we have some more comments. We've got Charity Spalding on the line. Hello, Charity. And John Paul Costales has given us a shake wave. And so hello and thank you to you as well.
Okay. So am I on?
You are on and you're ready to go. So welcome, David. David Ritchie is the Canberra expert SEO. We've got his banner in the background. And we attend the networking group Business at Breakfast together. And I have done some of his Monday courses. And I really speak very highly of his services. I know it's helped my own SEO. So welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Serena. This is an unexpected pleasure for me. I'm what you probably call one of those guys that's more comfortable with technology and buttons and wires than it is with talking with people. So thank you for dragging me out from behind the screen to the front of the queue. Yeah, we did meet at Business at Breakfast, and it's been very interesting to work with you too, because you're one of those very switched on people that I just love to work with.
Well, wow, I didn't think that. In fact, you know, this is probably a strange thing, but as a woman and in that tech space, like I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm, you know, a blogger, and I like podcasting and I like tech, but I'm not educated in it. But it's this constant dilemma about feeling dumb. I don't know whether guys suffer this the same way, but, you know, with women, there's all this.
Well, trust me, we mask it well. Guys are very good at going, yeah, mate, no worries, I got that. And then they're like, no idea. Yeah, amongst themselves. So please don't feel
women
like...
sort of go, oh my God, I'm so dumb. I didn't understand that. And, you know, why didn't I ask what SEO meant and why this is important?
It's an amazing thing in the English language these days, I guess these years, of we live in a world of acronyms. And if you don't know what the language and the acronym means in the language, you might as well be, you know, deaf and blind, because you don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So mechanics especially, I go and take my car, get fixed, and I know what a car looks like inside, and I recognise bits of it, but mechanics just bamboozle me. I'm like, oh yeah, you said this thing, is that underneath or on the top, or how much? So yeah, don't feel like it's just reserved for women. I just hide it better, I guess, because we're supposed to know this stuff, you know, guys. But yeah, the truth is, if you don't understand the language, you might as well not bother trying to be in the room, I guess. So part of my journey has been IT from a very young age, because I liked it and I could control it because it was on a screen. And I wasn't very good socially for most of my growing up years. So the fact that I had a machine I could play with and I could make it do things, and it was a toy, and then it made money and became a job, and then it became a lifestyle and a career, blah, 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 meant that I learnt the language osmotically. So no one actually taught me. I actually never went to university or anything like that. You know, I worked there, but didn't go there. But it's strange because now I've sort of gotten to the teaching role. So I had to teach people what I knew, but because I hadn't got a formal education, I just delivered it as I thought of it, which seemed to resonate pretty well with the audience. So I ended up in a teaching role for a long time. And then I set out my own business using the skills I've already got, looked for something I could teach that was still in the IT area. And SEO was on the horizon. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. How do you make money out of the internet? I said to myself. So what do I need to do? And that's why I picked up SEO, because I was very lucky to, you know how the doors open? You sort of go out one door and there's another door. You go, oh, maybe that one. And so I went to the door of called SEO, went to a very large online organization in the US who literally, it was called the one-man game, because it was all about, you know, your own business. But popping out millionaires, seriously, the guy's making a lot of money monthly, a lot of money out of SEO. And so I had to step up in my own thinking to go, okay, got to learn that stuff. Oh my gosh, got to learn that stuff. And then start, you know, practicing it. And because my background was working with support and teaching people, my passion is helping small business, because I put in so many business systems and I'd see the owners working late Friday nights. I'd come in on Saturdays, you know, because I was getting it done, get it ready. And, you know, their lives are sort of curtailed, I guess, by the box called their business. And so the part of the enjoyment I get out of teaching and the business club that we're in together is helping small business connect, because that's the connection that makes a difference between just working a job and actually enjoying the work or the career or whatever it is that drives your passion. So yeah.
There we go. Well, let's take it back to the beginning. We were talking about jargon before, and SEO must be one of those words gets thrown around so much. So let's talk about what SEO stands for and what it actually is.
Okay. Isn't it lucky I prepared a PowerPoint to help me through this?
Oh, wow. You're going to share the screen? I think I've given you.
I'm going to give it a try. I don't know, Serena. I'll see what happens. I know you've disabled it, so there's going to be a magic button somewhere. I think it's under the video area.
Did I need to?
I think you need to, yeah, because Zoom has been smashed so much that they've made it automatic.
Share screen, enable the remote control of all applicants.
Something like that, yeah. There'll be an option to say I can share. I'll try again now.
We'll see how that goes.
Otherwise, can you find my name in the list of attendees? Because I think there's an option there in the 3 dots beside my name.
Okay, so.
If not, I'll just talk it through. It's all good.
We'll talk it through while I work it out.
Okay, so SEO, 3 letters that strike fear into the hearts of everybody who's ever had an email saying, oh, your website is not good, you should fix it. I don't like the term, but unfortunately it's an acronym that sort of suits, because it stands for search engine, that's it, and the O is optimization, which simply means, can you make it better, faster, cleaner, brighter? Hey, I can share, thank you. Let me just get my PowerPoint up. You've got it? Cool. I don't know if I can see it myself.
I can see it. It's on. It's not on the view mode. It's on.
No, it's on the little slides down the side mode.
Yes, and that's fine because it works.
Yeah. I much prefer that, because when you go to the sort of the view mode, it takes over screens and does its own thing. And you know, I'm very basic. It's give me the simplest tools to get the job done, and I'm a happy person. Make it complicated, and I'm like, oh, I haven't got enough brain power to handle that. So SEO, search engine optimization, and that's the key. See, the optimization part means pretty much anything you want it to mean. If you've got, gee, I don't know, you cook, don't you, Serena?
I cook a lot.
Yeah, so you know how to make basic recipes, yeah?
Well, usually. Sometimes they don't turn out exactly as I planned, but in general, I can follow.
But you've got an idea in your head of how it should come out. In a lot of cases, and then the actuality is it may or may not. But even the dishes you cook nicely, you sometimes want to make them better tasting, I guess, you know, just as a really bad analogy. So the point of the optimization is that you're just trying to make it better, and search engines, for better or worse, are the way that we find stuff on the internet. Before Google came along, it was really hit and miss. The guys behind Google basically came up with a really good way of finding stuff that meant it was relevant to the question you asked. Previously, it'd just been literally this pile of information. You had to sift through it to find something, that was, an answer to the question you wanted.
I remember that, and it would be old stuff and weird stuff.
Vista, dog pile, oh my God, Vista, just horrible ones. Seek, really old engines that no one knew any better, because that's just how the information was gathered and sort of dumped on your desktop. So when they came along and basically took the world by storm, it was no wonder they rose to the top, because they just had a better mousetrap. Because when you ask the internet something, you want an answer that's relevant. In fact, you want the best answer.
Yeah, you do.
Otherwise, why bother? You might as well go back to the yellow pages, just pick something out of that. So the whole point of optimization is to make sure that you get the best answer. And that works both from Google's point of view and I guess the web person's point of view, the person who's got the website, because they want to present stuff that the search engine goes, oh yeah, you're the best answer. And in fact, you're the best out of the 10 possible answers I could present to somebody. And that's what the optimization in SEO is all about. It's how do I get that web page to be the best answer for that question that I'm assuming or anticipating or hoping that someone writes.
That makes sense. So, and I guess everyone who's got a business, or in my case, a blogger and a writer, you want your results up top, don't you? Because you want people to be noticing it on a search in Google and clicking. So
without good SEO, you're literally in a wasteland, because there are literally billions of websites out there. So trying to get to this point. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move through this very quickly because it can get bogged down. So SEO really means fast, optimized website with trust, credibility, and authority, using keywords to make that happen. So they're the things as an SEO I look at. I go, okay, is your website good? Do you have some trust? Are the keywords the ones you want to be found for? Then we move into a slightly different area, which is where SEO is moving to, I guess, these days. It's more like, okay, you're a website, but you're also a brand. And Google has quite a while back now, probably 10 years ago, they bought up resources, and their stated mission is to organize the world's knowledge. To do that, you've got to have information. To do that, you've got to have access to information. So they bought a whole bunch of information portals, one being called Freebase. And Freebase is like a Wikipedia, but a community-based one. And they actually bought all of that and then turned it into what they call the knowledge panel. So they know how to connect things together. So the magic word in there, which we're sort of starting to see a bit more these days, is the word entity. So you're an entity, you're a thing, you're a place, you're a person. And Google are starting to use that word themselves in public, not just behind the scenes. So the knowledge panel, which I'll demonstrate in a second, is pretty much how you know that Google knows you. And if you haven't claimed your knowledge panel, then not good. Should have done it. Let me just grab.
I have claimed mine now, but only after you told me, and I didn't even think about claiming it. So you're so busy doing other things, creating new content, thinking about new content, replying to emails, doing 101 things. I never even thought about the importance of claiming my brand on Google.
Absolutely. And this has been happening behind the scenes. So no one said, Google's never said, hey, obliquely they have, but they have never said to our face, hey, guess what? We're turning you into an entity because we want to sell you. We want to get money off you. That's why we're creating entities and connecting them together. So the Rolling Stones is a very well-known brand, very well-known brand.
It is.
Yeah. So when I type in the Rolling Stones, I get this little knowledge panel on the side here telling me that Rolling Stones is the word that Google knows them by. And so whenever there's the Rolling Stones, then Google knows, it's a rock band and it's connected and there's their website and they're available in all these places. And here's some history. So it's assembled all this stuff and presented as this panel on the side here, this knowledge panel. But the Rolling Stones had nothing to do with it. They didn't even know. When someone types in the Rolling Stones or Rolling Stones, all this will come up about them. And in fact, they still don't know about it because they still haven't claimed their knowledge panel. So whoever runs the Rolling Stones as a band, as a rock band, doesn't really know about that. And there's quite a few big brands out there that still have not understood that this is their capital, this is their IP. So if they claim it, then somebody can't change it necessarily, because if you pick up, bands is a bit hard, but if I picked up, say, I don't know, Target, which is probably Yep, target corporation. There's an option there to make some changes to it potentially. I might get the option to edit it, change the hours, for example, put a suggestion into Google saying, oh yeah, that shop, yeah, I should be able to change the hours on that, or maybe mark it as closed. So without me claiming my brand online, people can possibly suggest to Google that maybe I don't exist.
It's really interesting, which leads me to another question. Can someone fraudulently try and claim your knowledge portal?
Very hard to do. If I was to go back to the Rolling Stones and say, look, you know what, I'm going to claim them. When I click on that claim panel, claim this panel thing, what will come up is okay, you got to verify yourself in some fashion. So I would have to, in effect, say, okay, I represent them and I've got access to their YouTube or their Twitter account, which is why it's good to have a Twitter account, or I can get onto their Facebook page, or I can go into the Google Search Console to say, yes, I own that website. And therefore, my account becomes associated with that. And then I'm in control of it for sure. But it's pretty unlikely that I can actually get on and log into their Twitter. So it's sort of like a barrier to entry, but the fact is I can make changes to it if it's a business, because Google will actually allow me to. If I picked some small business around the place, who have we got? Let's see. Look, most people are aware of this these days. I just want to make sure that everybody knows about it. Let's just choose Capital Chemist in Charnwood just to see what happens. Yep, suggest an edit. There we go. I could say to it, look, you know what? I could remove this place. And Google would take that on board. And if like 10 people did it, then Google would be like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should remove it from the map. And if I haven't claimed it, and I think they would have because they're not silly, doesn't look like it. Yep, they've claimed it. Then they would never know because Google would never tell them.
So this is a very big tip then to everyone who's listening, watching this. Search for yourself or your business on Google, and if a knowledge panel comes up on the to the right-hand side, isn't it?
Pretty much the right-hand side.
Right-hand side. Scroll down the bottom and it says Claim Knowledge Panel. Click Claim. Now, having done that, there was quite a lot of process involved in terms of proving my identity. It wasn't straightforward, but it's done now. And so you need to do this. This is really important.
And because I've claimed my own business, I can now edit my business information. So Google knows this is me. It's associated in my little Gmail account with this business. So that's the first thing you need to do, claim your brand, because without that, you're not really sure that Google knows who you are or what your brand is. So now you've got a sort of it's almost a legal thing in a way, because you say, look, I have verified myself. This is my material. I own that IP. You've assembled it, but it belongs to me. And they have to honor that. They can't just discard it, especially with all the rules around privacy that's happening today.
Yeah.
Okay, the second thing you need to get in your system is the Google My Business. Now, Google My Business is a little bit different to the knowledge panel. This is where you say, hey, I want to tell Google that I have a business and it's called something. So there are ways to do it. I find the simplest way to use Google. I just go into Google and say, you know what, Google, Google My Business, please.
So you literally put in a search go to the Google search engine and say, Google My Business, and then the name of your business, or just Google My Business?
Google My Business to start with. It'll come up with the list of choices to connect to the Google My Business. I just go for a sign up or a look up or click on one of these links. And then it says, no worries. Now, I have to log in as a Google account, so I will need to have a Google account. That's fair enough, because it is Google. And then I just type in my business name. So you can see my account's in the corner here, my little smiling face. And I'll put in, look, it's very unlikely that these guys, well, there we go. Google's very easily worked out where I am in the world. So it's giving me very local businesses. And I could probably pick on one of these. And if it hasn't been, yep, they've already claimed it, which is good to know.
I just want to go back a little bit, David, because we've got a question from Jen Fletcher, who asked, I can't see mine, and I gather this is in relation to the knowledge panel. Is there a reason it wouldn't be there?
Absolutely. Google knows nothing about you. Because it's a knowledge panel, there's got to be enough free floating detritus out there in the ocean, if you like, of the internet, for Google to assemble it and connect it with you. So if you can't see your name at all, like you're not getting this panel, it simply means that you are not in enough places.
So the more you do on the web, like the more you put out things on your website.
Places. Yep, absolutely. If you want to get there quickly, I'll just go through the slide again. Get a Google My Business, because you will exist. Google will create you as a business if you don't exist as a business yet. And that's what I was sort of going to there. I was typing in the name of my business. It's already been claimed. If it wasn't, then I could go through a process saying, yes, I want to claim it. This is the address for it. This is information about it. Please send me a piece of paper, a postcard, literally a postcard, to the address I've said, and it'll have a number on it. And that number will then allow me to do, like, you know, when the bank says, here's your SMS, put the number in, exactly the same thing, except it's paper, because they use the mail system to do it. So the Google My Business is a process, and we can go through that in the workshop. If you want to know more, I'm running a workshop to help people through this. The last thing that helps get your brand out there is citations, which are places like Yellow Pages, Yelp, any directory site that allows you to put in a business type address and some information and a link back to your website, preferably. And also what they call unstructured. So Facebook is an awfully good unstructured place to put your name, address, phone number, and website, what we call the NAP or the NAPW. Because if you have that consistently throughout the internet, then Google is going to very much pick up that that address and that name and that phone number and that website all belong to the same entity. And then, of course, when you create Google My Business, bang, you know, you've literally completed the circle. So Google will, by that stage, have a knowledge panel about you. You'll have a Google My Business you'll have access to, and you just keep adding citations as time goes on. So that's a very straightforward process as getting your foundations in place. Now, the trust factor, Google trusts Google. That's it. If you create a Google thing, then Google trusts it. If you verify yourself to Google, Google trusts it. So the places you should put your content are YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Maps, Google Drive. Pick the odd one out. That's right, you picked Facebook.
Facebook, yes. I thought they were in competition with each other in a way.
Well, Google doesn't trust Facebook. Heck, I don't trust Facebook. Not after the Cambridge Analytica scandal a couple of years ago when presidents were implicated. My gosh, no. And other countries around the world, but you know, that's conspiracy theory and a totally different story. But Twitter, Google trusts Twitter. That's what I offer Twitter as one of the ways to verify when you claim your knowledge panel. Certainly, it definitely trusts YouTube because it owns YouTube, just like Facebook owns Instagram. It definitely trusts Google Maps, and obviously the Google Drive is a very good place for you to keep your stuff as well. So if you, even at a minimum, have information on these areas, even Facebook, it'll quite happily read Facebook, but you know, it's just another signal. It's not a trust factor as such. Then you're going to tell Google, hey, yeah, Google, I love you. One of the things I do is this. I spend money on Google because I want some space to keep my spares, like my backups. And two, by attaching my credit card to it, I've given Google a massive signal that I'm not a spammer. I'm a real person. I've got a real business. I'm prepared to give them money just for the privilege of being in their little stable. And so the trust factor is amplified by the fact that the credit card's there. Because
well, that makes sense, doesn't it? If Google is receiving payment from you.
Yeah. And that could be $2 a month. You don't have to give them a lot of money. You just have to, you know, I mean, I think the cheapest one was $2.49 from memory to get a small amount of space. But I figured, well, if that's what I've got to pay them to increase that trust factor, then yeah, it's worth it. No big deal. And of course, you can go and buy free ads on YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So you just decide where you want to spend your money. But if you attach yourself to Google with a financial value, then you're just increasing that because you're not a spammer. Obviously, they will never do that. Okay, now websites. This is where people get stuck. And I want to make sure that at least this slide, which will come out later in the Facebook group and wherever else we put it, you understand pretty much what you've got to pay for. You've got to buy a domain name. If you buy .com.au, it's 2 years. It's going to cost you about 20 bucks, 15 bucks, whatever. Let's say 20 bucks a year-ish. So you've got to buy that. Then you've got to store it somewhere. Don't know what that word was supposed to be, but yes, where to store it, I guess what I was saying. So you've got to buy a hosting service, and that ranges between, depending on where you want to go, let's say 12 to 50 bucks Australian per month. You don't get away with that. And that just buys you web space somewhere out there. Then you have to show it somehow. Now, a lot of people go, oh, I'll go and get all this stuff through something like Shopify or Wix or Squarespace or something like that. I say no, because that should be zero. There should be no cost attached to that. And then the content.
So let's go back there. No, to buy a platform. This is a platform for commerce.
It's a platform for presenting your website to the outside world.
Oh, I see. So, Wix charged for that platform. Like WordPress, they've got a number of free themes. They don't charge for it.
Yep, that's correct. So anything that says you must pay to buy the platform to show your website, step back a bit and say, okay, maybe I don't need to. I could go for the zero option. In fact, if I could make these guys zero, I'd be very happy too, but you can't for domain names. They're legislated, if you like. These guys range, of course, and then you're paying for quality, so it's like any other bargain system.
Yeah.
The content building side of it, that's really up to you, because you may be very comfortable for doing it yourself. You may hand it over to a web person of some nature to build your content, or you just may do it over time yourself. And that turns into your landing pages or your home page or your funnel or whatever you want to call the system that's going to get customers to buy stuff from you. The call to action is what you're talking about there.
The call to action. Because it's surprising how many websites it's not easy to find and buy things. And I had exactly that same problem. I only installed WooCommerce onto The Joyful Frugalista a couple of months ago. And before then, it was actually fairly hard to buy my book. Now, that is an embarrassing admission. But once again, you're busy writing a book. You're busy promoting a book. You're busy doing a whole lot of other things. And you just sort of assume that people will go into a bookstore and buy the book, until one day people go, well, how can I buy your book? And you're like, oh, it's actually not that easy to buy my book on the website. You want to make it really easy.
You do. Yep, that's the key. One of the best phrases I ever learned in web designing was from a guy who wrote a book called, I love this book, I can't remember the name of the guy, but it was this, Don't Make Me Think. I thought that is probably the best way of saying, here's a website. And as a user, I don't want to think. Just give me the next thing to do. Make it easy for me to find the stuff. I don't want to have to think, oh, I've got a choice, because I won't make a choice. I'll get frustrated and I'll leave that website. So the whole process of, I've got to find my book. I've got to get onto the website. This should be the, in fact, that should be the mantra for pretty much every business person. Don't make me think about how I'm going to give you money. Just help me make that decision.
That is a good mantra. You don't want to make it too difficult and confuse people. You just give up.
Yeah, people will give up because they don't like choices. We'll make good decisions, but we don't like choices as such. Okay, especially choices that appear to stop us from getting somewhere, because that just leads to cognitive dysfunction, and we don't like that. Okay, and then you, of course, want to get the thing ranked. So how do you get it to the top? Time.
So how much time? Like, because I know I'm an impatient person, and as you know, I've just started a new website, the Joyful Business Club. I'm fully aware that if you went into Google and searched for that, you probably wouldn't find it yet, because it does take time. But I'm an impatient woman. I want people to be able to find it first time, every time, straight away. How much time does it take for things to get picked up easily?
Okay. The truth is, time is money when it comes to this sort of stuff, because it's not a case of how much time it takes. It's a case of how many assets do you have out there for the Google machinery, the artificial intelligence now, to find you and connect the dots. That's what it takes. Time is equal to the amount of assets. So that is really what it comes down to. And the assets you can build yourself. Over time, you can write lots of blog posts, you can put lots of things in Facebook, you can put things into Pinterest, into Instagram, and all those other places we started to mention. But at the end of the day, that's going to take you time. So if you can get someone else to do it, or you can get it done in some automatic fashion, then that's going to build the assets, and then it's just a case of letting the search engine know that you've got all this stuff out there, please come and connect the dots, which they will do at their own pace, even though there's ways to slightly speed it up.
So I'm just going back a bit because, sorry to interrupt, David, we've got a question from Lib Ferreira from Lib Creative. Lib's actually speaking next week. She's the lovely lady who designed the Joyful Business Club logo, does beautiful work. And she agrees with you. She said, yep, totally got to spoon feed people. No one is going to give you business if it's hard for them. It's true, isn't it?
It's so true.
Yeah, you've got to really want it.
Yep, you've got to. So look, at the end of the day, I've seen websites that just have languished for years and have got nothing. You know, they've just been sitting out there, literally brochures, without anybody interested in them. So this is the key now, because we're talking about entities. Entities are things, and things have bits of them everywhere. As you walk around the universe, bits of you are falling everywhere. So, you know, you're a known thing. People know you. People like you, people trust you. So that whole asset base is what we're trying to simulate or create, I guess, inside the internet world on web pages.
Yeah, and you have to be careful about that as well in terms of all those bits to make sure the bits are consistent. Like, you mightn't think it matters, but people notice. And a good example of that is, I remember years ago I used to do food reviews for the Riot Act, and I once wrote about how the guy I was dating at the time ordered a really expensive T-bone steak. Now, he ordered it and he paid for it, but all of a sudden I had all these people saying, well, that's not very frugal, is it? I thought you were a frugalista. It's a very expensive T-bone steak. Now, I think our time is nearly up, David. We have an issue with Facebook in that there's a lag from the Zoom recording into the Facebook Live of about 20 seconds. But I've put a call out for some people with some questions. But maybe I can ask, you know, what is, you know, one key takeaway from all of this? You know, what is the number one thing that people should do?
The number one thing that people should do is think about the keywords they want to be found for, because that is what the engine really wants. Someone asks a question, Google is going to look through its big long list and say, oh, okay, that web page answers that question best. So I put these 4 words here. I put in industry, I put in vertical, I put in niche, and I put in intent. So let's go back to, from back to front. Intent is you saying, I'm interested in best cooking guide for cakes, for example. So that search engine query, Google is going to look for something that has basically all those things in it. It's a cooking guide, it's for cakes, and in some way it's got best in it, like as in maybe the word itself or words around that. So that intent would be one of the little characteristics that we use to say, okay, that web page about cakes is a good candidate to be put at the number 1 position. The niche also matters. So if I put that on a page somewhere, but the rest of the page was all about, I don't know, tiling, for example, there was words about tiling around that content, then Google would go, okay, now I'm confused. Is it about cakes or is it about tiling? So it would discard that page. So the niche does matter. So obviously the niche here would probably be something like cooking or cake cooking. So that would be probably something I would put on my HTTP. So I name the page cake cooking.
Well, that's such a good tip. David, that is such a good tip.
2 signals to Google. The third one I do, of course, is the title. So these 3 together are enough to help you start ranking more correctly, because you're giving Google information. It's a stupid machine. It doesn't know how to understand stuff yet. It thinks, you know, it can, but it's not yet there. So by putting the words in that you think Google should understand, you're helping yourself so much. So things.
We have a question from Jen Fulcher, and she wanted to go back to your question about try not to pay for a platform if you can. She said, I recently paid for my platform, but didn't think I could get my webpage live without it.
Yeah, I know. I've had that many, many times. The truth is you don't need to have a special platform, I guess is the way of saying it. Because ultimately, this is a bit of a computer somewhere that's connected to the internet, the hosting service. And the platform is just the file, the document on that bit of a computer somewhere. And so if you think that you need to buy a special thing to get Google to notice you? The answer is no, you don't. You can get away with it for zero, as we've done here, because that's why I use WordPress, because I think WordPress is awesome. And so do many, many people around the world. So there's always going to be someone to work on it if I, decide to hand it over. It's what I put on top of that, and that's the content. So and that's where the expense comes back into it. So this platform part, you should have to pay for it. If you are, you may be paying for hosting. You also may be paying for the fact that you bought your business name through them. So that might be part of the cost, because they are separate things. And the content, excuse me, the content is something that you just have to look at and go, well, do I do some myself, or do I just hand it over to someone who's going to assemble it and make it look beautiful, and therefore it's a valid web page?
Thank you, David. You've been so generous. Sorry, I'm cutting you off again. I don't mean to do that. You've been so generous with your time today, and I know we've answered a few questions. Now, if people have got other questions, could I encourage you to add them here on under this Facebook Live, and then maybe David might go in later and share his wisdom. But David, you also have a training offering, don't you? And I know because I've done your training and it's very useful.
Yep, I do, and I'm just literally putting it together for the group here. So I'll put that into the link, into the Facebook very soon, as soon as I jump off the call. It'll have a code there to get on, and it's probably going to start from next week, which is going to be, what, 2nd of July or something? Whatever it is, next Monday is.
Well, actually, good question, because today is actually a little bit later than that. So we're a little bit, how is it almost the end of the year? Next Monday, I think it's the 29th of July.
6 months, exactly. Yeah, and by the end of the 4 weeks, if you haven't got enough information and enough traction, I guess, to see that your website is starting to pick up its rankings, and as I said, you'll have the information to know how to continue it, then I'm more than happy to work on it to help you.
David, I've learned so much from your training. Every time I meet and speak with you, I learn something different, and I can't wait for your training. I know there's going to be some fabulous things in there. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time and to sharing your knowledge with such generosity. David Ritchie, the Canberra expert SEO. And I look forward to hearing more details about your course offering that you're going to share in the Facebook group.
Yeah. And if anybody's got any questions, just pop into the group and I'll answer them after this for sure.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Serena, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Now, how to use this software